on Shabbat, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kuf Memchet, which is Gematria 148, which is Gematria Ema Banim, Smecha, Ema Banim. There is a very interesting story that I think we should take a look at. The Gemara usually does not, is not skimpy on stories and so on and so forth, especially if the stories that have to go with a certain psak halacha. The Gemara wants us to know a lot around it. It's very interesting to me. Why is the Gemara always does it? Because I guess the Gemara is interested not only showing you the way they got to the psak halacha, rather, the definition of the halacha, instead of just saying, oh, this is how it is, but also the Gemara is interested in showing us the environment and whatever happened around the psak halacha. And very often we find many of this halachic discussion usually have a supportive story with them that goes along with that, or a description how this ruling came about and so on and so forth. And yet, however, there are some cases that we really, really need to pay a good attention to. And this is the case that we have here in the Gemara of Rav Yehuda, which was of course we all know he was the Rosh Yeshiva or Yeshivat Pompidita in Bavel. And he heard that Rav Bar Chana came from Eretz Israel to the city, and he didn't enter to listen to his drasha. He didn't come to enter his shiur. And Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yehuda is not giving up on his presence, and he sends one of his meshamshim. His name was Ada, and he says to him, "I don't care what you do, even if you have to pawn your clothing, but as long you do, in other words, do whatever you need to do to make sure the Rav Bar Chana is going to come to this drasha." So he does exactly what his Rebbe tells him, and yes, that Talmid Chacham is really, which by himself, Rav Bar Chana was a big Talmid Chacham. He's coming and he's listening to the drasha of Rav Yehuda, and he's darshaning what it says in Masechet Shabbat regarding En Machazirin et HaShever. En Machazirin et HaShever is if there is something broken, you don't, a bone broken, you don't put it back together. So therefore you're not allowed to fix a broken bone on Shabbat. So immediately Rav Bar Chana responds, like lightning, he responds. And it says in the name of Shmuel, it says Rav Chana, in the name of Shmuel, it says, Halacha yi shemachzirim et hashever b'Shabbat. It's halacha, it's not that we put the shever on Shabbat. So what are you telling her? So imagine something like this. In the middle of a drasha, of this big chashuv Rosh Yeshiva, comes this, basically his Talmid or somebody like this, excuse me, you're wrong. And yet the guy, Rav Yehuda, is not angry and is not reprimanding him. On the contrary, he's very happy. And he says, Gam Chana is Bavli and so is Rav and Shmuel. Those two local Rabbanim who pasking halacha like this. And yet, he says, Nidrashnu l'shmua zokayet. We needed this svara now. I mean, what's going on? It's very bizarre. He knows that the Rav and Shmuel were pasking halacha like that, and yet he says, "Oh, good thing you came from Israel and you told us this like this, right?" So therefore, in a way, what Yehuda is saying is a good thing that I made you come here, because now that you came from Eretz Israel and you affirmed to us that this is how they rule in Israel, this is a good thing. I was right for making you come here. So there's a very simple story about halacha, but it seems that there is something more to that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Is it possible that Rav Yehuda does not understand the local Masorah, the local tradition, and he needs that from a Talmid that came from Eretz Israel, that learns by Rabbi Yochanan in Eretz Israel, to tell him that? Even if mean, it doesn't seem, it's very unlikely he didn't know that. I mean, after all, we're not just talking about some kind of a chachamik or some kind of like a local rabbi in Yehovatsville that doesn't really know much. He just got his smicha, 7,000 years ago. It's just then didn't read in the book. We're talking about the Rosh Yeshiva of Pompidita, Rabotai. That's like big time. I don't think it gets any bigger than that. Well, it depends if you ask Surah or Pompidita, but it's pretty impressive. So it's very unlikely that he would not know that. And even if he did not understand the psak, why isn't the Gemara says, just tell us this, story like many, many times the Gemara does it. And the Gemara says, when Rabbi Baruch Hana came from Ma'arav, when he came from Eretz Israel, he taught that this is when we fix the Shever on Shabbat. Why do you have to tell me this whole entire story? That he made him come, and he sent his Ada, and he told him this, and he told him that. It just does not make sense. Even if he didn't know, which is very unlikely altogether. And that's why it seems like that the sugiyah, that the story in the Gemara comes to teach us something deeper than just like how the halakha evolved. And Rav Yehuda is not like us. He sees things differently. He sees a certain shever. Shever means what? Breakage, something broken. He sees a Talmid Chacham that is local to the place, and he sees that Talmid Chacham that is local, that doesn't see it fit, doesn't see it right, to come to the drasha of the local Rosh Yeshiva, that is not maybe the center, the spiritual center and halachic center, maybe in the old ancient world, or at least that part of the world. And he doesn't see the reason that he should come to this drasha. It's something that he sees. There's a second breakage here, there's a certain breakdown here, that it's so deep that he needs to send his shamash to basically drag him. And he said to do whatever you can to drag him, even if you have to pull your shirt off your back. You drag him to come to listen to the drasha. And that Talmid Chacham, it seems like he doesn't find any kind of interest in the Torah of Bavel, or maybe he didn't feel that there's anything that he needs to bring them new from Eretz Israel, and therefore he doesn't show up. In other words, his Talmud is already somewhere else. He doesn't see himself connected to this place, one way or another. And Rav Yehuda is not giving up. He wants to fix this breakdown. He wants to bring back this Talmid Chacham to his Bet Medrash, and to prove it to him that there is a reason and there is an important, and he is important by his presence in Bet Medrash, even after he changed his place. He is learning by Rav Yochanan in Israel. And I see it many times with guys that, let's say for example, learn here, and then they go to Yeshiva in Israel, and then they come to visit, and they never set foot here because they live in Israel, they learn in Israel. And that's exactly the story that we're doing here. If you need to understand that when you disconnect yourself from the place that gave you the roots, the place that started your, or initiated your growth, don't think that it's something that you could do so easily and without being affected. And Rav Yehuda understand that. And if we're going to dive into this metaphor completely, Rav Yehuda says that we are not allowed to fix a shever. We can en metaknim shever. And he brings Rava Baruch Hana to fix it and to say it in a full mouth. He doesn't say metaknim shever b'Shabbat. Rav Yehuda knew exactly that you allowed to fix a broken limb or broken bone on Shabbat. But the shever that we are talking here is not necessarily a broken hand per se. It's a communication breakdown, a certain breakdown between the place that, let's say for example, grew here, and all of a sudden doesn't see himself a part of it. And Rav Yehuda brings Rabbi Baruch Hana, and he's basically Rav Yehuda giving us here a tremendous lesson in leadership. One of the important things of a leader is not to sell the people that you're commending or people under you, your idea. Is to make sure to present it to them in such a way that they will think that it is their idea. If Rav Yehuda would have gone to Rabbi Bar Chana and reprimanded and says, why didn't you come to the yeshiva? It's a disgrace what you're doing to me. I'm giving a drasha and you're not coming. You're making other people look better than me. Look at this Talmid Chacham comes from Israel and he's not coming to the drasha. Probably something wrong with the rabbi. And slowly you deteriorate the community like that. And as a Ben Torah, you expected something else. You expected to be Talmidei Chachamim. What do? Marbim Shalom ba'olam. They bring harmony to the world. And when Talmidei Chachamim do whatever they do to make disharmony in the world, that's wrong. Rav Yehuda is a master. He brings him and he says to him, you're going to tell me. In a way, he made them say it. He says, no, metaknim et hashever b'Shabbat. It says, to say in a full mouth, say, here in Bavel, the paskin different. He says, yes, we are metaken the shever on Shabbat. We can fix this breakage on Shabbat. At exactly the same point, when he said that, Rabbi Bar Chana says, no, we fixed it on Shabbat, Rav Yehuda, he says, got you on this one. He says, I didn't drag you to this Bet Midrash for nothing. It wasn't to show that I'm a tyrant and I'm forcing you to come to Bet Midrash. That shever that we had is a trust, a matter of trust. If in the Babylonian Bet Midrash, and you yourself see it thing different, there is a breakage and you didn't come here, therefore we need to fix it. As much as a broken limb could not stay broken, even if it's on Shabbat, because it's going to become a decay, and it's going to become problems, and you're going to probably have to cut the limb at the end. Even on Shabbat, you fix the bone on Shabbat, so is the relationship of Rabbi Bar Chana with the Yeshiva Pompidita could not stay in a state of a communication breakdown. It cannot stay in a breakdown relationship. The Torah of Eretz Israel and the Torah of Bavel were meant to enrich one another, not to overrun one another, to enrich one another. And for that, the Tikkun Shever, the fixing of the breakage, comes in the missing of Rabbi, the fact that Rabbi Bar Chana was not present in the drasha of Rav Yehuda. So for that, it was appropriate, and it was worth it to even to pawn your own clothes and to forcefully drag him to Beit Midrash. Why? Because Ichui Shever doche Shabbat and doche the Machloket. And that's something that all of us who are consider themselves to be not only Talmidei Chachamim, even just Bnei Torah, it's something that we should need together. And we need to understand. We should be able to be those who put things together, who don't create divisions, who don't create division and conquer. And if you're a Ben Torah and somebody, whatever, got angry at you for whatever reason, try to make peace, try to bring him back together, try to bring him together. But don't divide and conquer. And especially when it comes to taking people from other shul. Let's say you want to open your own shul. So open your own shul. But make sure not to take people from the place that actually nourished you. And if a place that made you religious and made you frum and so on and so forth, you owe them. You can't just say, okay, goodbye, I'm going now and I'm never going to be seen again. Remember those who took you when nobody else took you. Those who taught you when nobody else taught you. And however, as you could see, Rabbi Yehuda did not mind that Rabbi Bar Chana will go to Israel and learn. Go learn. You want to learn more? B'chavod, go learn more. But when you come home, don't come here and open your own yeshiva all of a sudden by dragging other people, because what are you going to do? Maybe you're going to become a Rosh Yeshiva. Maybe you know more than me, but I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to tear down the community. And that we cannot do. Even for that, on Shabbat, go pawn your clothes, because it's a shever that we need to put down together. That's something we should know. Rabotai, that's something that we, especially in those days, we have to be very careful with. We have to prepare ourselves to the fact Jewish communities are going to suffer. Jewish institutions are going to suffer. Yeshivot are going to close down. people are not going to be able to support yeshivot, are not going to be able to support synagogues, and it's on us, on both ends. If we are the ones who maintain the yeshivot, we need to do something, even if it would come to merge yeshivot together, so we could continue having Torah. After all, it is not about ourselves. We're not running for politics, no, we are not politicians. This is about something much greater than all of us. It's about Torah and Torah itself. And we need to make sure, is if somebody says to you, listen, my yeshiva has few people, your yeshiva has 2 people, so instead of both of us closing, let's merge together. Let's make a true partnership. L'shem shamayim. L'shem shamayim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we bring shalom la'olam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have rachamim and we have a big thing. In my neighborhood, there is a yeshiva, that there are 2 people running the yeshiva, and Baruch Hashem, they flourish. Why they flourish? Because of the achva that they have for one another. And that's something tremendous. It's not about you. It's about the Torah. It's about Am Yisrael. It's something greater than all of us. If you're on the other side of a balabatim, you have to understand that you have to reach into your pockets because it's on you. You need to support to make sure yeshivot will function. There are plenty of yeshivot that I know for a fact already closing. And you don't know what it takes to open a yeshiva. You don't know what it takes even to continue supporting a yeshiva. Or to run a yeshiva. It is like Kriyat Yamsuf is nothing. And you need to make sure to be there to support the yeshiva, to support Torah, to support your local shul. And instead of opening shul in every corner out there, which is wrong, and don't tell me you're doing it for the sake of Torah, you're doing it for yourself, you gotta be careful because nobody's gonna come, not to you, not to anybody else. And it's time for us to put away all the differences and come together right now and do something for Am Yisrael. To welcome people. Even if it's a conservative person that wants to come to a shul, let him come in. Everybody that wants to come in, you're allowed to come in. And yeshivot, I think, should be less strict on putting obstacles and people coming in, and they should flex away. If we're going to do that, and we're going to internalize that, and we're going to dedicate ourselves for the future, and I really mean the future of Am Yisrael in America, is dependent on what are we going to do now. Now, from this point on, Rabotai, Chodesh Elul is coming around the corner. 1 month to Rosh Hashanah. 1 month. Are you going to come empty-handed? Or are you going to come with something in your hand? Are you going to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, make me another vehicle, make me a vehicle, give me another year, so I could become a vehicle to spread Torah, to spread harmony in Am Yisrael, to spread Torah, to give places that bring people together. Please, are you going to come like this? You're going to come empty-handed. What are you willing to do for Am Yisrael this time? What are you willing to do for Torah now? What are you willing to do? The future of Am Yisrael is on your shoulders. The future of Am Yisrael is on your hands. Each one to his own. If we're going to be able to do this now and be innovative, creative, courageous, and loyal, we'll be able to come out of this stronger. This is the time that we can reach out and bring more people to Judaism by showing them how beautiful to be a Jew is and observant Jew is. If we're going to put our selflessness to the side, if we're going to be like Rav Yehuda, if we will be able to sell the people the idea that Judaism is for all of us, it's their idea, it's their Torah, it's not only my Torah, your Torah, I think we can make something great and beautiful out of it as an example. And it starts with us, and it starts now, and we need everybody on board. Have a beautiful day.